Special Operations, Covert Ops, Espionage, The Team House, with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park. All right, so for this episode, I'm here today with retired Sergeant Major Michael Adams. Mike served in 5th Group, 1st Group, 7th Group. Any other group?
Not 7th. 1st, 5th, 3rd, 10th. IMA, SOPAC.
Sorry about that. So they kept you super busy, Mike. Thank you for doing this interview today. And we've known each other for years, and it's fun to do this with you and discuss your career in some length and depth.
Yeah, Jack, I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. It means a lot. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start at the beginning, man. Tell us a little bit about sort of like what your upbringing was like and how that led you towards the Army.
Yeah, sure. So my upbringing was very outdoors, hunting, fishing. Also, my father went as far as to take me backpacking with a limited amount of food and made me live off the land. And back in the day, he taught me how to navigate with a map and a compass. He gave me all kinds of skills that he all put into, becoming a special forces soldier. As far as my backstory, what happened was I went to college very young. Literally the first day I was walking up this hill to register for classes, and I had to cross a bridge, and there were two special forces guys rappelling off the bridge with a couple students, right? Yeah. It turned out to be Joe Dennison, who was the first sergeant major of the regiment, and Ken Lanzalaco, who was also a MACD-SOG guy. I managed to stay in college for 2 years, but the whole time in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't want to fucking do this shit. So one time I got Joe to go down to the recruiter with me, and the only thing they would offer me was Ranger Regiment. I'm like, no, I want to be in Special Forces, because by then I knew what Special Forces was. I mean, I knew the difference, but they weren't accepting people off the street. So a year later, I went back to the recruiter, and they were accepting people off the street. I think it's similar to, they have a program now called something. I don't know what it's called.
X-ray program. And
is that what it is?
Yeah. And what year was this, Mike, that you went and signed up?
In 1977 was the year I signed up, late 77. And so I went to, basic infantry, jump back up to Bragg. We had what was called pre-phase back then, which was just a lot of, beating the shit out of you in rucksack marches and running and stuff like that. It wasn't like that whole organized thing that they have now. It was, we did stuff kind of like that, but it was more of, rucksack marches and running than it was these organized team skills that they do now, which I think are great. They're wonderful. But the way it ended up was in phase 1, I think a lot more people got weeded out than they probably do now. I don't know what the percentage was, but I could tell you it's a fuck all.
Oh, Mike, we lost your audio.
Yeah.
I lost your audio there for a sec.
Where'd you lose me?
Okay, you're back. You're talking about how a lot of people probably washed out in phase 1 during your class.
And so I support the idea of having a structured pre-phase where they actually, weed them out there instead of wasting a bunch of time and money and putting them in phase 1, right away. I was also very fortunate in phase 1 and in all the beginning of my career. Pretty much almost every damn guy had either been in SOG or he at least had been on an A team in Vietnam. Everybody but me. And so, of course, they hated me for what I represented. They did not like guys coming off the street at all. They didn't care for us. But they came to accept us. For example, the first time I went down to my first company, the sergeant major made me go out and fucking rake leaves before I could even in process. I mean,
well,
But
I mean, it's incredible, and I mean, I didn't know that Joe Dennison was he actually like kind of recruited you into SF.
he totally did, 100%, 100%.
Who's
We were friends my
who's a
whole
legend
career.
in his own right.
Hmm. Absolutely, dude. He's a warrior and a hero altogether. He did so much for the regiment. It was unbelievable. Yeah, yeah. He was a real good man. Real good man. And I ran across a lot of really good men back then. I mean, I think everybody from the group commander down to the teams, every senior guy was a vet from Vietnam,
Mm.
right? So they had all this experience. And once they got over being pissed at us, they gave it to us. They passed it on that to us. And that was a unique position to be in, because these guys had done the gamut of missions.
Yep.
They didn't just do DA or whatever, or they didn't just do fence hopping, which is cool. And really, I'm really think that's very impressive. But they also had 8 camps out there in the woods. And, they had singletons, guys out there for a year out in the mountains of Vietnam and other areas. So they did the whole full gamut of missions, of special forces missions, I think, while they were over there. Fed, UW, everything. And
That was a generation of guys who knew how to patrol and like
yes,
really knew
oh
really
my,
knew field craft.
dude, let me tell you something. I can't tell you how many hours we spent working on our LBE to get it perfect. I mean, if they heard one little tiny noise, you were fucked, you know. But they taught us. They didn't say, unfuck your LBE. They taught us how to do it. They taught us how to patrol. Yes, they were the guys that could patrol from hell. And I learned really ton of stuff about patrolling from those guys. Really ton of stuff.
What was the your first ODA after you graduated, first group? Where were you?
So what happened first was they sent me to the fucking uh, combo shack to
The SIG
fucking
det.
great guys tapping out code. I'm like, fuck this shit. And then they sent me up to they sent me to the instructor's course that you had to pass up there. I don't know what it was called. And the guy liked me up there. So he talked to the combo committee. They kept me up there. And then there was another master sergeant up there that was a combat diver from ODA 543 in 5th Group. And he was just doing his last tour. And so he got me hooked up to go back down to ODA 543. And that was my first team in 5th Group. And it was a fantastic team. We had so many good people, good team sergeants. Mark Milling was one of my team leaders from 81 to 83. He was a real good man. I know people talk a little shit about him now. Nah, you're wrong. He's a good man. He calls me to this day to check on me because I got stage 4 cancer, which I'd like to talk about later.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And Mark
um,
Milley went straight to the top. I mean, he's chairman of the Joint Chiefs,
yep,
right?
yeah, yeah. Well, he just retired a couple months ago, but yeah, he went all the way up, and he was a real good man. And my team sergeant at the time, some guys will know him. His name was Master Sergeant Henry Beck. He ended up getting the DSC for charging a machine gun nest in Vietnam. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hardcore
So
crew.
these are the kind of guys I was around. You know, they were just amazing guys. My senior commo guy, I don't know, somehow he went to Fort Leavenworth after Vietnam, but came back. I don't know the whole story beyond that, but lots of guys with lots of stories,
And I mean,
interesting.
it was also such a different time. I mean, up on Smoke Bomb Hill and the GB Club and SF was so small back then. Like everyone, my impression is everyone knew each other
We all knew each other, Jack, and it was so much smaller. You couldn't put together 3A teams in my company on a good day, you know.
because
Um,
because you were
there weren't
undermanned.
enough people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I want to say, I can't swear this, but I want to say they took the TO&E down to 2 companies per battalion for a while.
Wow.
That didn't last, I think. I can't swear on it. But then gradually it started coming back, and then they opened up a battalion out at Lewis and reactivated first group, and then things slowly started going. But yeah, it was tiny. It was tiny. Smoke Bomb Hill, everybody knew each other. When you were in training, you were allowed to have 2 beers at the Green Beret Club where the stripper was and a shitty hamburger, you know, and the ugly stripper. But yeah, that was the atmosphere. But I'll tell you, uh, when it came down to missions and stuff, hard as 10 motherfuckers, hard as fucking nails. Everybody got immediately serious, immediately hard as nails, did not fuck around.
Could
Nobody fucked around.
could you tell us a little bit about like your first ODA, like any real world missions you may have gotten, or even training missions that stand out in your mind?
Oh, what stands out? God, there's so many. Um, I hate to talk about my first team because some of the stuff I could say, I really don't want to say. I mean, we went to do a lot of stuff. We went to Europe, we went to Africa, we got to do a lot of shit. It was fun. Some was training, some was kind of, you can, sometimes it was like, you couldn't run, there was like a gray area between training and real world, if you understand what I'm saying. You know, like you drop a couple of guys or a few guys off in the middle of nowhere on a runway in Sudan, this happened to me. And you know, you kind of have a mission, you kind of don't, you know. But there you are. The Chinese are controlling the airfield. There's MiGs all around you, and you got a little tent and a couple Indige hanging around there, and you're like, what the fuck are we supposed to be doing here? So we just fucked around a lot, you know. It was fun. It was really fun. We had the best times back then because they're just, as long as you did your job, you could really get away with a ton of shit. And it didn't have to be illegal. It was fun, you know,
Right, right.
And it was all such a learning experience. It really was.
Yeah,
We
it's
were
work hard,
very
play hard.
fortunate to have such a good learning experience, you know. It was just totally awesome.
And what came after that first ODA then? What was the next one you landed at?
Well, I stayed, oh, let's see. I went on to my first SpeakApp project, I think, after that.
What's Speak App?
Uh, um, I guess a covert project or something. I don't know. Very classified. That's all I can explain it. I don't know what it means. Special category, I think, is what
Okay.
SpeakApp means. I don't know what it means.
Well, okay, what was the gist of that?
Long hairs and civilian clothes and go overseas, you know? And it was a blast. We had a great time, but we had a mission. As we did the mission, as long as we, you know, kept our shit together, we were good to go. And we could get away with doing, you know, this or that, whatever goofy things.
This was the RST mission?
No, I don't think so. I don't know what that stands for.
I think it was regional survey teams, and like 3-7 had one. They were like one of the early ones. But when you say like long hair doing intelligence work places, it sounds similar to that early. Like what
That
we're
could have
talking
been what it
about is
was.
a
I don't remember that code. I don't remember those. Remember, it's been a long time. I don't remember those
sure.
abbreviations, but we had like two ODAs combined together. And as a matter of fact, I'm still in touch with a couple guys from there, really good guys, Clyde Dougherty and Gordy Hopple. I've been in touch with those guys recently. Unfortunately, again, it comes back to this cancer shit that's going on. Oh, sorry. Um, but yeah, yeah. You know, one time we went to Jordan and we did all this cool shit. We thought somebody was following us around or something. And I ended up buying a plane ticket to go back home. And back then, you used cash,
Yeah.
you know, to buy plane tickets. And you went to travel agencies. And I get on this fucking flight, man. And just like maybe a couple hours after it started going, and I don't think anybody else was with me. I don't remember anybody else being with me on that trip. All of a sudden, I hear we're descending into Damascus. I'm like, what? Back then, we were not friends with Syria. They were not buddies of ours. And I was like, what the fuck? So the travel lady had given me a flight that stopped in Damascus on the way to New York City. I couldn't believe it. I was scared shitless. They made us get off the plane. They made us sit in the lounge area, and some dudes in plain clothes were going around looking at passports. And despite my obvious white boy look, they did not come over to me. I don't know
Were
why
were
to
you
this day.
were you traveling on a U.S. government passport?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so not you're not gonna hide that.
No. Hmm. And we had a really stupid, lame cover story. It
Did
was
did
ridiculous.
you do a lot of missions like that around that time, going like by yourself or onesies and twosies?
I did do a ton of onesies, Jack, in my career, especially in the Pacific. That's why, as I told you, I think before this started, I sat down and wrote it down. I deployed to over 30 countries in my career, several of them multiple times. In the Pacific, in particular, I helped start up the demining program in Laos. I helped start up the demining program in Cambodia before we turned them over to the first group. And then I did a shitload of onesies to some really fucking interesting places. Some of them not so cool. Like Cambodia was not cool. The Khmer Rouge were still there. We were out in the middle of nowhere with a bunch of Cambodians, just me and a bunch of Cambodians. And, there was gunfights going on somewhere around us, but whatever. And then what was the other one I was going Sri Lanka. There's a war going on there, bombings. I was there by myself. I'm trying to think of other places in the Pacific. I can't even think of them all.
Um, well, I mean, well, let's jump right into. I mean, what were you doing in Cambodia? Hey guys, it's Jack. I just wanted to talk to you today about a way that you can help support the podcast if you're not already. We would really appreciate it if you guys went and reviewed us on Apple or Spotify. Those reviews really help people find the podcast and help it get recognized. And, if you've been enjoying the show, we really appreciate your support. Another thing that you can do to support the channel is to become a Patreon member. So we have Patreon memberships that start at just $5 a month. And when you sign up, you get access to all of our episodes ad free. That's the big bonus for that. I mean, we also do some Patreon bonus episodes for our subscribers. But this is the biggest and best way that you can support the Team House channel and podcast if you'd like to. And we really appreciate that. So go and check us out at patreon.com/the Team House.
Cambodia was the demining program. So it was really interesting. And especially Laos. I'll probably confuse some of what happened within one country and the other because they happened simultaneously. But one time I can remember coming out of the embassy with their helicopter going on a survey mission up in the mountains. And we were in civilian clothes, but we got off the helicopter and some really old dude came up to us and said in English, he said, "I've not seen a soldier since the Vietnam War." I was like, damn. So those dudes were up there, our precursor guys were up in the middle of nowhere in Laos or Cambodia, and this dude remembered them.
And this is in the 1980s, I take it.
Yeah, yeah, the 90s maybe. And I
Okay.
think it was the 90s.
Early
And then
90s.
another time, a lady walked up to us holding a UXO and handed it to me. I was like, okay, yeah. So I just walked real slow to the edge of the bill and put it down and marked it and left. I was like, fuck, man. But the problem was, dude, we left some insane amount of UXO in Laos and Cambodia. We
Yeah.
carpet bombed those fucking countries. And that's when the CBUs first came out. And they throw these springs out and shit. And if you touch them or move them, or if the kids picked them up, they'd go off. They had a huge dud rate, like 30% or maybe worse, a dud rate of those things. But they would still go off oftentimes when you picked them up. I could relate to it because I could remember one morning in Desert Storm waking up after a movement at night, being in the middle of a field of UXO CBUs. Same thing. They were still dropping them duds all over the place during the Gulf War.
And then what about Sri Lanka? I mean, with the Tamil Tigers, there was a pretty hot war
Yeah,
going on there, into the 90s.
that's right. So in Sri Lanka, um, yeah. So when I got to those countries, the first thing I was supposed to do was link up with the defense attaché. And at most every country had a defense attaché. Um, some didn't, but most of them were fairly involved. I can remember the Syrian Lankan attaché. He introduced me to he brought the Sri Lankan army guy in. He introduced me, and then he wouldn't leave the embassy. I had to fly out into the field with this guy way up north. There's a peninsula up there, an island where the war was going on with the Tigers. It was isolated. This island was cut off, and I had to fly all the way up there with this dude in a Soviet Mi-17 or something that feels like it's going to break down every second. And there was an active war going on. And there I was. Hope things go well,
And
right?
what was your mission, like reconnaissance at that point?
Yeah, reconnaissance to try to understand what value added training we could bring to them to help them beat the Tamils. That
That's
was we were figuring out.
but that's fascinating because it dovetails with what others have told me that around like I guess 94 or so there was a classified MTT or foreign internal defense mission to Sri Lanka that
Mm-hmm.
first group did.
Well, I hope that was a result of what I found out. I don't know about it, but I hope
What
I helped them.
what were your conclusions from your time there?
They needed help from the ground up. All their shit was worn out and beat up. They needed a lot of money for weapons and stuff, but they also needed training, our kind of training that we could give. And so I
Mhm.
imagine that's probably what the first group of guys did was train them up. Because they basically didn't really have any training. I don't know who originally trained the Sri Lankans. It must have been the Russians because they had Russian equipment.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know, but they were very happy to see me and hoping that more would come. So I'm glad to hear something else came.
Yeah, yeah, they did send ODAs and SEALs to do that. Yeah, not too many people know about that mission to this day.
Yeah, well, I'm glad they did because the Tamils not only were they and dude, it was like World War II trench fighting. I was like walking through these trenches. I was like, fuck this shit, man. But in addition to that, they were doing suicide bombings in the
Yes.
town. And that was fucked up. As a matter of fact, they blew up the hotel I usually stayed in, but fortunately, I wasn't there at the time. But yeah, they had a lot of suicide bombers there.
I think if memory serves, I think the Tamil Tigers may have been the first to use female suicide bombers.
I think so too. I
Yeah, I
think
may
so
need to
too.
fact check that, but I think that was the case. Um,
Yeah,
so
that was before we were seeing suicide bombers in the Middle East.
right.
They were the leaders in that suicide bombing bullshit, as far as I know. You know,
Um, so I know we're jumping around a little bit, but I
it's
mean,
okay.
so you start off in fifth group, and then where did you end up after that?
Well, so I
You
was
said
on
a
this spot.
secret, the classified operation, but then I mean, what was kind of the next landing spot for you?
I went to first
Hmm.
after that. I was going to tell you something that will get me in trouble.
Yeah, no,
But
no,
yeah,
tell me
no.
the thing. Tell me the thing that's going to get you in trouble.
Never mind. So, um, after it was over, a few of us got the opportunity to pick where they wanted to go. And I'd been in fifth group, I think like 12 years or something by then. So I was
Hmm.
like, let me go check out first group. So yeah, they sent me out to first group. And I got to go out there and check out the Pacific. I did a couple of deployments, just regular couple goals and that bullshit over to Thailand and a couple other places. I can't remember where they were, but it wasn't much. It was good stuff though. I mean, your regular stuff. It's all good. This is what a lot of these guys from GWAT are going to need to relearn. I think is that you may not like it, you may not think it's cool or sexy. You may not think UW is cool or sexy, but let me tell you something. That's our core mission. That's the mission of special forces, and we're the ones that are supposed to be the expert at that. And if we don't watch out, people are going to take that away from us too. I already saw before I even left. I already saw the CAG started to take it.
Yes.
And that's not cool. That's our mission, not the CAG's fucking mission.
Yeah, whenever they get bored, they kind of snatch whatever FID mission they think is the sexiest and
Yeah,
do that.
yeah.
Uh But and now there's also the SFAB, right? That does and that
Yeah,
was Mark Milley's brainchild.
yeah, I know. But at the time, you needed it. You
Yeah,
need to be
yeah,
able to
the war
vamp a
was
bunch
on.
of
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Just because I like Miller doesn't mean I agree with that. I got mixed feelings. You
I
know,
understand. You're right, but I mean, you're directionally right, and just to point that out to listeners, that with two wars going on, there was so much FID to be done
yeah,
that they needed the conventional force to come in and help out with that. And before,
yeah,
even before the SFAB existed, I mean, it was just like a mission that would get thrown to like a field artillery unit or an MP unit, like, oh, go train these Iraqis. And they
crazy.
didn't have, they weren't receiving, the Americans weren't receiving any sort of like foreign internal defense training. So, I mean,
Hmm.
it made sense to formalize it, I guess. I mean, I was trying to speak to both sides of that argument before I.
Yeah, and I really think we need, as special forces soldiers, to embrace the FID mission and show that we're the best, and not let these guys take it away from us. They're supposed to be the best at what they do. We're not supposed to be the best at what they do. We're supposed to be able to do it proficiently. Um, but we're not supposed. We are supposed to be the best at FID. So prove it, and they won't be giving the mission to somebody else, right? And they're fun, good missions. They really can be. It's all what you make of them, right?
And can have a huge impact as long as you find a
Oh,
viable partner.
well, yeah. And what you talked about Sri Lanka proves it right there, right? Well, pass it on to people. It has a good effect. That's what we're supposed to do around the world.
So first group, I mean, it sounds like you were having a pretty good time over there. I mean, are there other any other missions or any other ops or anything else that like really stands out that you think we should highlight here?
Well, yeah, that's why I went on sock pack, because I knew there was a lot going on out there. Let me grab my phone. Sorry. I wrote down some of these countries, and it'll jog my memory. Sorry. Did I get all tilted? Sorry
No, I
about that.
got you.
Just give me 1 second, Jack. So, oh, here's a good example that was even earlier was Urgent Fury. So after Urgent Fury was over, we got to fifth group teams got to go down there, and other I think some guys too got to go down there and do FID missions afterwards. And
I
we
didn't know that
spent
at all.
oh yeah, totally. So almost every major island in that chain down there had a special forces team or two teams on the island for like 6 months or maybe longer. I don't know. And we would train. In my example, we took two scuba teams from fifth group down to an island called St. Kitts, and they only had a police force. They did not have a military. So we were given the weapons and equipment to re-equip them and train them to become a military force to protect their island if the same thing happened on St. Kitts that happened in Grenada, because St. Kitts, I think, is even geographically closer to the United States than Grenada was. And they really could not put up a defense against anybody if they came in there and tried to take over and put nuclear weapons in there like they did in Grenada, right? Earlier. Was it Grenada? Wherever they put them. They're
In
I'm thinking
Cuba,
about Cuba. Yeah, yeah.
and then there were
Um,
fears that they would do that in Grenada. Yeah.
exactly. There were fears they would do it in Grenada. And they had a lot of people on the ground and kind of heavy weaponry, I believe, on the ground there too. So yeah, that was really cool. That was a fun mission. Like once every week or two, a C-130 would make like two loops around the island, so we would know he was there, and then we would drive over the runway. He would hot offload a bunch of shit, and we'd take it, and it would be filled with tons of stuff, training gear,
Beer.
weapons, ammunition, beer. The first day we got there, we went to their arms room, and it was filled with ganja. Completely. You couldn't put any weapons in there because there was too much weed. I'm pretty positive that the government was involved in the, drug smuggling business.
I think that's a fair assumption.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. But that was very laid back, and you know, maybe a little too laid back sometimes. But it was a good example of a mission. It was the opposite, I'd say, of Sri Lanka as far as being laid back. It was, if they're on the opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's a good example, of a mission that we did,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
came on. Here, let me look at my country list again. Hmm. Fiji, Tonga, those were all trained the military. In Fiji, I remember going there, and I met up with the attaché. He actually participated this time, and we got in a helicopter and we flew out in the middle of nowhere in the jungle, and we ended up where people were wearing fucking robes. I mean, loincloths and shit, like way back in the day. And we ended up in their longhouse, drinking kava, which they think makes them drunk, but it's ridiculous. It doesn't make you drunk. I mean, we'd sit there for hours while they were doing their little ceremony, and we laid the groundwork for the guys from first group to come in. Hopefully, I don't know if they did, but we sent back, what they could use and do. So you're right. It was kind of like a recon thing almost,
Right, right. Like
you
the
know?
pilot team.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, one man pilot team. But anyway, so that was a really good one. I wanted to say a couple more. Seychelles. That was really interesting.
Yeah.
The Seychelles are like off the coast of Africa more than anywhere else. It's a Pacific island, but it's closer to Africa. Go ahead.
Right. I was just going to say, I mean, alongside major international shipping routes through the sea, and occasionally a coup attempt happens there, and we
That's right.
definitely didn't want the Soviets controlling that island chain.
That's right. So that was the really interesting one because when I got there at that time, a group commander met me there. That's how serious they were taking this. And so the group commander, I can't say his name, but whatever, me and him were there and we planned out the mission to follow on. We started planning the mission to follow on about how they're going to manage the Seychelles. I don't know what the follow up ended up being, Jack. That was the problem with my job. I never knew what happened downstream for whatever reason. But they considered the Seychelles a super important place at that time. And you're right, geographically, and the Russians were all over the place. And Eric Prince was, I don't think it was there back then, but Eric Prince definitely found a place to hang out there later on. Have you heard anything about anybody going to Seychelles?
Uh, as far as like a SF
Yeah,
MTT or something, no,
yeah,
I don't believe I have. I'd have to dig. I've heard in more recent years in the 2000s in the Maldives. Um,
yeah, yeah. There you go. So in the '90s, I went to the Maldives, and that was a really interesting place too. And again, another one man. Uh, I don't think there was an embassy there. There was some American he met me. There might have been a consulate there or something. I don't know. But you got in the Maldives, you got to go everywhere by boat.
mhm.
You get from literally, yeah, the airport's an island, the capital is an island, the hotel I stayed in was an island. It was really funny. But the thing that sticks out in my mind that was funny about the Maldives, and it should be geographically important because that's where climate change is going to sink. That's the first country that's going to sink in climate change. Um, to set up the target range, we had to put the targets in a boat and pull them out offshore, and then have to fire at targets and then bring the boat back to see how well they hit it. Isn't that funny? I mean, marksmanship training would have taken days or weeks because of that. So they're going back there now?
In the 2000s, and I'm trying to remember the exact story, but we had a team there when there was like a little coup going on, and we had to evacuate the team off the island. I want to say it was the Maldives. I interviewed a first group officer about it, but my memory may be a little bit faulty.
Um, yeah, they only had a police force too, but they could have had a coup. Who knows? I
Hmm.
don't know. Everybody has a coup, don't they? In those places.
Yeah.
Hmm. let's see, Indonesia. That's a big one. So I made initial contact with Indonesia. Now, the defense attaché was deeply involved in Indonesia because there was a huge, I forget the name of the programs, of the military equipment programs.
Like the 1208, 1206
Yeah,
programs.
exactly. They were huge. We were dumping military equipment and money on Indonesia like it was the end of the world. And let me tell you something, dude. And I think there's probably some CAG guys and other people that will attest to this too. I think the Indonesian Special Forces are among the best that I've come across. I really do. And I know they've been trained by CAG too, in addition to us. So what happened was the prime minister, president, whatever he was, his son was the head of the Special Forces. Now, I know it sounds like nepotism, but he was a badass on his own. And their unit, their Kopasus, they were called. They were badasses of their own accord, although we gave them lots of additional training. We did not want things to go south in Indonesia because it's a barrier, between China and Australia, I believe.
Mm.
And
And
we
the
want to
the
protect it.
Australian SAS does their own training missions in Indonesia, and
Yeah.
actually, interestingly, they've also taken up a lot of stuff in the Philippines too.
Oh, the Australian SAS? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. One of the guys, I had an exchange guy on my team in first group and we're still friends from the Australian SAS. He became the regimental sergeant major of, uh, of the SAS. Really good guy, Gary Kingston.
What was your experience in Indonesia like?
So I got to go there, I want to say 8 times probably. What
Wow.
happened was the commander took a liking to me for whatever reason. And you know how that shit goes. Then he starts asking for me by name, whatever. And so I kept going over there and he treated me like a king, gave me my own little hut and food and made. I mean, it was great, you know? And it helped, me understand their mission more and helped me understand how we could help them more, having this relationship. And SOCPAC was like, yeah, go back and forth as much as you want, you know. The one thing, good thing about SOCPAC, and those socks had basically just started up. I don't even think there were other socks besides SOCPAC. I think SOCPAC might have been the first one. I know there was I don't think there was any other ones. There might have been, but I don't think so. But the first commander was General Holland, who became SOCOM commander, I believe. He was an Air Force pilot, and he was a 1-star when I was there. And he loved SF guys, and he was like, "You guys do what you want to do what you need, spend what you got to spend." And he would go up to Paycom and get the money that we needed to do shit and get the permissions. He was a really, really good commander.
So it sounds like it would have been the TSOC for Paycom, that they were really into you, like just going over there and building rapport.
Yes, totally. They got it. They totally got it. That's why I ended up going to so many countries. Like for the Cambodia thing, I ended up getting a huge United Nations award for me and for Paycom for starting those programs. It was a big deal, man.
Yeah.
Of course, I lost the award somewhere in a box, but it was a big deal then, and I remember it. So whatever. But yeah, he totally was into supporting special forces, which was really, really good. So yeah, that was Indonesia. They continued to build our military. Now I don't know the situation. Have you heard anything about guys going there recently?
I haven't heard anything about Americans going there, and I mean that doesn't mean anything. It certainly could be happening, and it hasn't popped up on my radar.
Yeah, I hope they're going because those guys are good. Thailand, I went there 10 times or whatever. It's the same old. I mean, Thailand. I don't know what to say about it. It's a good country.
It's the same training evolution over and over every
Exactly.
year. Yeah.
Exactly. You need to do it once. You do. It's important to do it once. The first time I did it, it was really interesting. We went up in the mountains and we went to an old American base that nobody had been to in like 100 years. So it was all grown over and shit. And we started scraping away the vines, and we could find uh, in the concrete guys' names from the '60s and what units they were in. It
Wow.
was so cool. Yeah, yeah, it was fun to go back and see that, man. But yeah, you got to go one cover gold, getting on your belt. Um, Congo was really cool. Again, we trained up them. I think they had a pseudo military, like not a real one, but halfway between the police force and the military. I couldn't swear. I remember we set the framework though for real fundamental kind of training, and I don't know if that was followed up on or not. Uh, Vanuatu was a lot like Fiji, you know, a longhouse out in the middle of the jungle, sitting down, building rapport, drinking cob again, where everybody acts like they're fucked up. I'm like, why are you guys acting like you're fucked up? It doesn't do anything to you. Come on, man. Oh my God. Oh, Egypt was fun. So we got to train with Telesabot, which is the Egyptian Special Forces, 777. And we went over there for a long time. It was a combat dive team, and we were training them in combat diving. And it was a very long and extensive course. I think I would say by the end of the course, they were pretty damn proficient, or as proficient as you could expect them to be as combat divers. It was funny. We took them to Suez Canal and did one of those rope. Those fucking things are hard, man. Climbing up those rope, little metal ladders up the side of the boat. And I think it was either right before or right after that thing happened where that Achille Lauro
In
incident
the Mediterranean.
happened. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they had been trained in how to do that. Couldn't say if they did or didn't do it. I know they did get in on a plane takedown and pretty much killed everybody from what I remember.
Yes, I remember
Yeah,
that.
that was unfortunate. That could have gone another way. I can't remember exactly when that takedown was, but
And I want to say it was like 87 or 88. Again, this is off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, we would have already trained them by then. If that's the correct year, we would have trained them by that point already. What did I say? Oh, Bosnia. I took a company from 10th on their Bosnia rotation. That was interesting. I think that was a very, very good special forces mission to have.
So
Very
by now you're a sergeant major.
Yeah.
Company sergeant major.
Yeah.
Your singleton days are behind you now. They have greater responsibilities for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was kind of bummed because I got to do a lot of shit and a lot of super classified cool shit, you know, and then it's back to the company, but that's okay. It is what it is.
What was Bosnia like then?
So Bosnia was interesting. Have you had anybody come on and talk about it?
Yeah, definitely. People, you know, who were pre and post 9/11, a lot of guys cut their teeth there.
Yeah. So yeah, they had these houses set up kind of around the compass point, you know, and they had a team per house. It was a beautiful setup. You know, you couldn't ask for anything more. And every house on the inside of the house was fortified like fucking Fort Knox. They had heavy weapons in the windows. They had access to rocket launchers. They had everything they needed to have a gunfight, you know? And so they would basically, you know, they were supposed to patrol around and interface with the civilians a little bit, you know. I don't know how the other deployments went. You know, I only know how the deployment I was on went. What have other people told you? Because I'm not really clear on. Go ahead.
I mean, some of them have told me, I mean, some of the JSOC guys were doing like low visibility, you know, reconnaissance stuff, driving around. Some of the SF guys, I mean, going around drinking rakia with the local police and developing rapport with them. I talked to one guy, who was it? Mark Giaconio, who his team was working with Russian Spetsnaz in 2000,
Yeah,
and they went and got into a firefight with the rebels. It was like a joint operation they did together.
yeah. Bosnia was like, I don't think I think it could have been done better. I'm not sure the mission was clear enough for people. I think this is after action. I mean, looking
Hmm.
back, you can say anything, but I think the mission could have been clearer for people. I think they could have been better prepared with more knowledge than even I didn't get, like, or my company commander. I think they could have passed on more knowledge to us about what exactly the mission was,
Right, right.
what exactly we were supposed to do there or not do.
What was
You
your
know,
impression of the mission once, well, when you got there?
well, like you said, driving around drinking booze. I had a guy get a DUI. Fuck. Driving around drinking booze and building rapport. I mean, that's basically what they were doing. Uh, you know, um, I think that I think their actual mission should have been clearer than just driving around building rapport.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I don't blame them one bit. I don't blame a single guy on the ground. It's the chain of command above. I do not think in this particular instance provided enough clear guidance that people could understand how serious this was. I think Bosnia was far more serious than the guys I took anyway realized, and therefore, because I was not a 10th guy, I just got there and we got the mission. So I didn't have any history with 10th Group. I didn't know shit about Bosnia. So I knew what they told me. I knew what people told me, and I knew what the mission stated. And that was what I knew, you know?
And you guys got in there were a couple dust ups on that deployment,
Yep.
wasn't there?
Yep. One guy, yeah, there was a couple dust ups. Yeah. Uh, the only casualty I know is one bad guy. There should have been a lot more.
What happened there?
In the with the casualty, that
Yeah.
was uh, that was a guy in a restaurant. Um, it was legit, getting threatened. So he kept going.
Like it was this
That's the
just like
story I was told, Jack. That's not firsthand information.
I get
Do
it.
not. I'm going to say I don't know what happened except somebody got capped.
Yeah.
That's what I know.
But you as a sergeant major, you had to go and deal with the aftermath.
Well, the worst aftermath was no, they had Pete Moosey, Sergeant Major Nine, I believe. He was a buddy of mine. He fought in El Salvador. Pete did. Me and Pete were peers.
Hmm.
Pete's a hell of a guy. He was Sergeant Major too. We got out the same day. Both Sergeant Majors both said, "Hey, that's good."
There was I remember you telling me a story about how you had like a dust up with the Russians over there.
I did have a dust up with the Russians. So they wanted me to go over to the Russians and tell them this is when Kosovo happens, and somehow tell them not to go to Kosovo. And it's like, okay. And so I think that both the conventional people, which was MND North, the first cab, and us were both trying to convince the Russians not to go to Kosovo. But of course, that's ridiculous. I went up to the gate and they're like, no, you're not coming in. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to touch. Now I can't see you.
I'm here.
Okay. They're like, no, you're not coming in. And then I want to say it was shortly before or shortly be after that one of our houses got hit pretty hard. They hit it with rockets, machine guns, small arms fire, et cetera, et cetera. So it got hit pretty hard. And I'm thinking it's like right around the same time. Again, I wish I kept track, but I didn't, because it is important to know if it was related or not. I
Hmm.
don't know if the incidents of us trying to convince the Russians not to go to Kosovo and them being fuck you and what happened to our house or not. I couldn't tell you. I mean, I don't believe in coincidences myself, but it could have been the timing was different.
And then when
So
they
they
did
came at the house hard.
when they did push into Kosovo, that turned into a shitstorm with you as well, didn't it?
What do you mean?
I'm just trying to remember some of the previous conversations we had, and I remember, didn't they? You were at a bridge trying to.
Oh yeah, yeah. We were trying to stop the Russians, like standing, like you're not gonna go, you're not gonna go, and they're like, we're going, we're going. I'm like, fine, but this is one of the important part I'm trying to think of is this is almost the exact same time the house got shot up. That's why I think they might have been connected.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm out here just fucking making shit up. I don't know. But I'm sure there's somebody who can, many people who can correct me, probably hundreds. But that's my recollection is that they were very close to each other, and the amount of firepower they put on that house, they weren't intending to say hi and just keep going. They wanted to kill some fucking people, you know. So,
um, there's a couple other things I think we need to hit up before moving on too. So first, you mentioned the Gulf War.
mhm.
How'd you get involved
so,
in that one?
so in the Gulf War, and this will go back to you asking me how I got to my next step. I was on the special projects team, and my team sergeant had one idea about what going into combat meant, and I had a different idea. So I took my idea to my sergeant major, and he let me go. I went out to the field to help a company with Syrian, some Syrian guys, because I spoke Arabic. So I went out there to help them with some Syrian guys, and I stayed out there for a while, helping them with the Syrians. And boy, they were fucking assholes. Holy shit! Wow, they were serious fucking assholes. Ultimately, they ended up surrounding our. Well, first of all, the B team and everybody else left. The B team was actually out there, and everybody left. And my team and maybe one other team or two was still out there. And the fucking Syrians surrounded us with these goddamn armored vehicles and shit. And they're like, "Get the fuck out of here." We're like, "Okay, we're gone." So we packed up and left. Then what happened? We might have got an en route change order to the mission, but it happened pretty quick. And we ended up with the Egyptians again. Tell it Sabat, huh? But we ended up with the Egyptians, who I'd worked for, obviously in the past. It wasn't the same unit, but it was the Egyptians. And somewhere in the period in between, the sergeant major gave me one of the team. So I ended up being a team sergeant, which I was, of course, thrilled about. The team wasn't, but I was. It's so funny. I'll just tell you this as an aside. When I took over that team, I think there were 6, 7 of us. By the end of the fucking war, there were 14 fucking people on my team. You know what oh my God, I was so mad. You know, all of these motherfuckers come out. Where were you when I was doing all the shit work? Oh, but, you know, really, I
They want to
mean,
get in on the war.
yeah, it was fucking bullshit, man. I didn't like it at all. I mean, you got your team, you train together, you get ready, and here they throw a bunch of, officers that want to check a box and other guys that mostly, I think it was like an officer and at least one, two warrant officers and more enlisted guys from third boot maybe or something. I don't know. I just
So,
ignored. I ignored
um,
all of them.
I just want to take a moment to point out like what you guys were doing there at that time because as I recall during the Gulf War, and I'm sorry I can't remember the exact program name, but
Mm-hmm.
there's like a military liaison program where we put SF liaisons with each
That's exactly
member
right.
of the
Mm-hmm.
coalition that HW had put together.
That's what we did. That's exactly right. And we were the only reason they made it to Kuwait City because we had the first, seriously, we had the first GPSs ever to come out. We would have never found the motherfucker.
So you ended up doing the invasion with the
I
Egyptians?
rode on top of the commanding general's tank from the trenches to the burning trenches to the middle of Kuwait City because I wouldn't get inside that motherfucker because I didn't want to die inside a burning fucking tank. So I sat on top with my M16. I did. And I helped them navigate. And we get off now and then and do shit, you know. I'll tell you, man, we saw, and this will come around to cancer later. We came across decontamination sites. We came across stored chemical weapons. We came across what had to have been spills of chemical weapons. Dude, we had so much chemical weapon exposure. And then on top of it, at the end, have you heard of Kasmaya? Kasmaya
Yeah.
is a place where the conventional guys had gathered up a fuck ton of weapons, having no idea what they were, conventional engineers, and blew them all up at once. And there was this humongous plume of smoke that settled back down over the AOR. And virtually almost and the CIA went back and did, for the government, did an AER, and every single team from fifth group that was deployed got hit by that plume of fucking smoke.
Jeez.
And dig, I don't care. I fought this battle with the VA for 10 years because I have terminal cancer. It's gone on and off for 10 years, but it's, you know, I don't have maybe less than a year left now. And I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
The plume of smoke coming down on all the
Yeah,
teams.
on all teams. And there's a Facebook group now for soft cancer guys. Funny how many guys were in that fucking plume. Now, I had to fight the VA for over a year about disability for my cancer. Ultimately, after getting to the VA administrative court in DC with a Navy colonel, JAG officer, who did it for free for me, we brought in like crates of fucking boxes, set them down, and we're like, we're not leaving. So they ultimately gave it to me 100% for the chemical, for the disability for bone cancer, but they wouldn't say it was Iraq. They said it was exposure to some shit in Africa. I'm like, really?
Yeah, it's
Because it would
ridiculous.
open a huge can of worms for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's unfortunate our government plays this game. You know, they did it with Agent Orange, then they did it with, Gulf War syndrome, which that probably is what you're describing, that guys were exposed to low level
Yeah.
UXO that was destroyed, and it affects some people more than others. I'm always saying this
Or
because there's
people
some.
were closer than others.
Yeah, yeah. There was an actual study that came out last year, and they showed that like there are certain types of people, their DNA, like it's in their genetics, their receptor to sarin gas is higher than some other people. And that
Oh, wow.
explains why there may be this disparity, why some soldiers got quote unquote Gulf War syndrome and others didn't.
That's
Um,
wild. I never heard of that.
yeah, yeah, there is some like actual some legit medical research on that now. And I'm sure I'm not explaining it as a doctor would, but I mean that's the gist of it.
No, I get it. But my opinion is at the end of the day, they don't want to say that it was due to chemical weapons exposure in the Gulf
Yep.
War because it's going to open this huge can of worms for all these guys to make claims,
Yeah, yeah. Um wow, so
which
the
fucking sucks. You
it's
know,
bullshit, honestly.
it's
Um
total bullshit. And, you know, I went to fifth group. Friends of mine have gone to fifth group, all sergeant majors. And we've tried to talk to them, but we don't get the impression fifth group supporting this at all. You know, trying to open up an actual investigation into what happened. There's so many guys out there who probably don't even know why they had cancer, or it
yeah.
doesn't even occur to them that it could
Hmm.
have been chemical weapons. You know, I mean, really, I was so furious when they said Africa. Come on, man. What chemical weapons were there in Africa? Give me a break. But
Um the other thing I wanted to swing back on was your time on the Greenlight team.
yeah, yeah, that was so fun. I had the best time. So, all right. I'm going to try to explain this without offending anybody, but something that offends me is the distinction between pre post 9/11 veterans. I'm not blaming anyone for doing this, but I'll tell you, I know an awful lot of pre 9/11 veterans, like, let's say, Magdi Sog. I don't know why they made that distinction. Do you? Because we're
No,
missing a lot of benefits.
I don't. It goes by eras. So there's like Vietnam
I know,
era, there's
I
Gulf
know.
War era, and you may fall into that cohort, but not have served in the war. I honestly don't understand that shit either.
Well, all I know is I'm trying to get scholarships for my kids to go to college.
Hmm.
And seriously, at least half of them, you have to be a post 9/11 veteran. No clue. Why would you make that distinction? What does it matter when you served? You know,
I
what
don't know.
difference does it make? Anyway, I'll let that slide. So, Greenlight. I did Greenlight for, I think, 3 years. Greenlight is infiltrating a nuclear weapon that fits in a rucksack into a target area and then placing it on a strategic target in the event of a very large, well, it's going to be on the event of a world war, was what it was brought into service for, was for the Cold War. To stop the Soviets from coming across, and apparently it's still classified. Some officer told me not to talk about it a couple of weeks ago, but we were supposed to block key strategic points like uh, dams, cuts in the mountain passes, stuff like that, stuff that could stop tanks, right?
Bridges, ports,
Bridges, big
yeah.
bridges, and you could implant them. You could go in and dive, and you'd use a combat dive team to put them on a bridge or a dam. Was definitely a lot of dam targets. Um, when you could halo it in, you could stag on parachute it in, you could walk it in. The big problem, and I'll talk more about it, and you can ask me questions. The big problem from the team level is, depending on how long your deployment is, the operator, meaning the guy, there's one guy who's designated the operator. He's the guy who knows how to work the weapon. He carries the weapon most of the time. Although you're supposed to rotate it, I'm here to tell you, Jack, there's a lot of guys that can't carry it. I mean, just can't carry it. It's just too heavy for them. And you try to weed them out, but if we ever got a real world mission, we would have weeded them out, because if you can't carry it, what good are you?
Yeah.
Because you have to distribute all your shit, your food and your clothes and your medicine among all the other guys on the team. And it was usually a split team. So that's a lot of weight for everybody carrying, and so it makes it hard. So anyway, maybe you can get a picture of one to put up with this thing.
Yeah, for sure.
I have
Oh, I
some
can
pictures of them.
I can keep going. I can actually do a share screen thing.
Okay. Okay, so the first thing you had to do was go to this school up at Fort Belvoir, and ironically enough, it says Special Forces Special Atomic Demolition Munition Training Course. I think I sent you a copy of my diploma if you haven't. And it's a conventional there it is. That looks like it's in a museum.
Yeah, that's I believe there's a National Atomic Museum in Nevada.
Yeah, so they make a specialized container. That's not it. It's a hardened foam container that you put the weapon in. So when you
Uh
drop your rucksack, it's cushioned.
Here is I got this one from a SEAL who was part of
Mhm.
the program.
Yeah, that's it. That's not in a rucksack, obviously. Maybe they swam it.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
did.
that's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And let me see what else I might have for you. I have a couple pictures of the jump pack. Um oh, but here's a good this is like an probably an iconic photo, you could say.
Let's see. Oh yeah, yeah. That's a good picture. Some dude hailing it in. Yeah, that's a real good picture. It's really weird. He doesn't have it in a rucksack either. None of
It's
these
on a
pictures.
a different, it's a jump pack, you know.
Hmm. They must not have been planning to move it anywhere. That's weird. Anyway, so you went through the training, and when you got through the training, if you made it, it was complicated because there was a ton of math. You had to calculate all this crap about where the blast is going to go and where the wind's going to go. It's a big weapon, and the effect is really far because of the fallout. It's crazy, especially depending on the wind. So you get through the training, you go back to your team, and from then on, you're dedicated Greenlight team. You don't do anything else. You do green light practices and green light training. You basically just practice a bunch of missions, but you incorporate a dummy weapon in your missions. So you do DA missions and over and over again, incorporating the dummy weapon in a rucksack. In addition to that, somebody, if I say the department, it'll be the wrong department. You would think the Department of Energy, I think it was DOE, would come down and do periodic inspections. I think they were annual, and that was for the whole company down to the team. Everybody had to pass the inspections, and let me tell you, everybody did not pass the inspections. You couldn't. You were non-functional until you could pass the inspection. So that goes from all the paperwork and shit the battalion company got to do, which you can imagine with a nuclear weapon is a lot, down to the team and all the safety stuff and all the operational stuff you have to learn how to do. And everybody on the team, just like everybody else, has to know how to do everything.
It's
Uh,
as I've researched this topic, I mean, one of the like mysteries is around these exercises, there's always these like civilians floating around. So a guy wearing a suit shows up in a briefing, or you have some guys wearing military fatigues out on a training exercise, but they have long hair, no military bearing. They're clearly not soldiers. In another case, guys in literal sterilized black jumpsuits who don't identify themselves. So it's a bit of a mystery sometimes who these literal MIBs in some cases are, and I suspect that they came from the Defense Nuclear Agency,
oh
which
yeah, yeah.
in 1997 merged with another agency and became the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, or
Oh,
DTRA,
DTR. Yeah. Now I'm sure that's what it
which
is.
exists to
Yeah.
this day. And so
Yep.
I can't say I know for a fact that all of those civilians were with that organization. Some of them were from Sandia Labs or Lawrence Livermore, but
Uh huh.
I think the bulk of them were from the Defense Nuclear Agency.
All right. So I'll tell you prompt me. I've told you these my exposure to civilians and weird events that happened to me when I was on Greenlight. So, like you said, when you do the inspection, the MIBs were always there. You never knew who the fuck they were. They would tell you who they were, but you're like, whatever. You know, they were always at the inspections. Um, so you asked me what weird things happened to me during green light. So let me think of them in order. So the first one I can think of is one time at Bragg. Now, this is really weird. We're at Fort Bragg, and they called us out to do a green light mission. And we went out to Pope, broad daylight, and they had a bunch of MPs surrounding the back of the plane, and the vehicle backed up to the back of the plane, and we had a bunch of guys watching us go through the arming of the weapon, you know? And it was weird to have all those guys there. And then we went out and we just went out and jumped at Sicily. It was really weird. And there were civilians on the ground at Sicily. And then,
Sicily drop zone for the listeners at Fort Bragg.
right, right in the middle of right in the middle of Fort Bragg. So we'll just assume it must have been a dummy because nobody's going to drop a nuclear weapon in the middle of Fort Bragg. I mean, come on. I mean, right?
Well,
just like
Some of us
just
would
like
like to drop
nobody's
a
gonna
nuclear
use a
weapon on Fort Bragg.
like nobody's gonna fall off a Fulton skyhook in the fucking housing area for Brian. You know that story?
No.
Yeah, they picked up a guy and when they were testing the Fulton skyhook, and he fell off right in the middle of the housing area of Bragg.
Oh, I did. I've heard the story about how he became so disoriented he fell off the back ramp, but
Yeah,
I didn't know that was over the housing area.
yes, yeah,
Holy shit.
isn't that funny? So, that was whatever it was. The next one that was weird was in Utah, Dugway Proving Grounds, where there's so many chemicals and so much, all the chemical testing and shit goes on out there, and radiation testing. I believe a whole ton of it's done out there too. So we had a little mission where we jumped in, we were carrying the weapon, and we took in for our company commander was with us, and some other people were with us that I don't know who they were, and we were supposed to detonate it in a cave at Dugway. So we took the weapon in there, we infiltrated, we went to the cave, we put it in the cave, and we detonated the weapon. That's all I can tell you, except for the funniest part, which was my company
Detonated the
commander.
weapon without the nuclear pit. It was the conventional explosives.
Right, correct. God willing. The funniest part was my company commander, who I despise, left a fucking radio in the cave. So I was so happy. And I hope he hears this because he knows I despise him.
Was he
No,
relieved after that?
he wasn't. And I don't know why.
Hmm.
Probably because, you know why. They keep shit to themselves.
Yeah.
Whatever. So the third one is kind of more interesting. Um, so we got like a warning order, I want to say, at Bragg. And so packed up boxes, packed up everything, like you do on a rollout. And we packed everything up and we flew to Morocco. And in Morocco, we did isolation for a couple weeks, for a Greenlight mission. And it was very serious. The whole thing was very serious, and we were given everything that we wanted, needed, asked for, which you know how weird that is, to get everything you want, and get everything you asked for. So we knew something was going on. We didn't know what. So then we got onto a C1 after we passed the outbrief by the group commander. What do they call those? Debrief, isolation. I can't remember. Isolation debrief.
Like a back brief.
Back brief. Okay. So after we got the blessing to go on the mission, we loaded up and got picked up by an MC-130 in Morocco. We had a new team sergeant who we didn't really know, and on the trip over to the UK from Morocco, the MC-130 ran into a lot of turbulence, and it was a very rough flight. And then it lost an engine, then it lost another engine. I can't remember if it lost a third, but for sure it lost 100%. And our new team sergeant was laying on the floor having some issues. So we landed in the UK. The MC-130 was deadlined, but we already had another one there waiting. That's weird. So we got on the other one. It was the middle of the night, backed up to all we could see was a million MPs around us. And they loaded.
Do you recall what airfield this was in the UK?
I wouldn't have known. They didn't
Okay.
tell us. Yeah. I want to say it didn't seem like it was that long between we finished crossing the channel and landed. So whatever's in southern England there was probably
Okay.
it. And it was probably where they stored weapons there in England. Yep. I don't know. So yeah, so we picked up the weapon and somebody watched us arm it, and I don't know who it was. Well, a few people watched us. And so then they closed it up and we flew into our drop zone. We parachuted into a blind LZ at night, which is sketchy as it always can be, right? But everybody made the landing okay. And then we had a long movement to the target area. So we made a really long movement. And for some reason, the team leader was navigating and he managed to make us have to cross the Audubon with a fucking nuke at night. I was just like, you gotta fucking be kidding me. Are you serious? He got lost. So we crossed the Audubon with a goddamn SATM device. Now, I was scared to death. That's the most scared I've ever been in my whole career, trying to run across the Audubon with a heavy rucksack, man. You know how those things are. I mean, have you seen them?
Yeah, yeah. And Hans
Dude,
is driving down the Autobahn at 150 kilometers.
exactly, like 150 miles an hour. You know, they're crazy over there. So yeah, we managed to get across the Autobahn. We got the weapon to the target, and some guys met us there, and they took the weapon, and then, well, after we had and placed it on the target and overwatched it for, so with SATMs, you're supposed to arm the device, and you're supposed to stay within visual distance of the device until it detonates. Do that math.
It doesn't work out.
It doesn't work. No. But on my life, you can find it in writing. I'm positive you're supposed to keep visual contact with the SATM until it detonates. So why don't you tell him the Don Alexander story that he told you?
Oh, he told me that back in the day, your favorite joke was that when you unlocked the SATM and opened up the lid, that there'd be 12 medals of honor and a bottle of Jack Daniels inside.
Yep, we knew. We knew the deal. But we did it. You know, what are you going to do? You do your
Yeah.
mission. You do your mission. Besides that, my personal opinion was there was no timer. I felt like the second you turned that button, it was going to go off. That was my opinion. I have no proof whatsoever. But why would you put a 12-minute timer on it or whatever? Why would you take any additional risk?
It's
You're going to kill the guys anyway. They're going to be dead. They know that.
it's really interesting, I think, that even with a nuclear weapon and you have all this doctrine and security and regulation and stuff, that some of it just didn't make sense. And
Yeah.
so these team sergeants, largely who are Vietnam veterans, they know how to run a patrol. So,
Yep.
like for instance, the tactic that only two guys on the team are supposed to have the combination to the device to open it up.
Yep.
One of them
Yep.
has half of the combination, the other has the other half. But any guy
I
who's
don't. I don't remember that. But go ahead.
well, either way, any crusty team sergeant who's been in a lot of combat operations knows that you have to have contingencies, and everyone on the mission has to know how to do the mission. Because what if that one guy with that information
Oh
ends
yeah,
up in the
yeah. We did the
trees
same thing.
or gets
Everybody
shot?
knew. Yeah, everybody on my team knew how
Yeah.
to set it off. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so
I
it's
was
it's it's
on.
just it's interesting how the teams start like coloring outside the lines out of operational necessity because the doctrine just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I thought there was no time. Why? What's the point? You know?
Yeah, a lot of guys felt that way and would joke about it.
Did they? Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah. I
surprised.
mean, there's no proof that that's true, but I mean, it was a fairly common belief on some of these teams.
Well, all it does is add additional risk to the mission, right? It adds an additional possibility that somebody gets control of the weapon.
Right.
You know? So either way, you're dead. So whatever. I mean,
Um,
if I can see the weapon, it's going to kill me.
yeah, the
100%.
extraction plans were pretty gonzo if they existed at all.
Oh, they were awesome, man. We were going to E&E like 1,000 clicks and hit these cache points along the way. And
No
the
problem,
E&E,
dude.
no, seriously, the E&E plans were very detailed. I think they were left from World War II. Pretty sure. Pretty sure. but they gave them to us. We had them. I never
Um,
saw one that wasn't like a ground evasion plan.
so jumping around a little bit again,
Sure.
after your assignment in company sergeant major with 10th Group to Bosnia, what came after that?
I was compelled to medically retired because I couldn't jump anymore. I had 11 surgeries to my right knee. I could barely run. I couldn't jump. I knew I could bullshit more for some years, but I wouldn't do it. What's the point? If I can't do what everybody else is doing, I'm not going to fake it till I make it. Fuck that. I'm going to put somebody else in danger if I say, yeah, I can run, and I can't,
Mm.
right? So I took the medical retirement. Yeah, is what it
And
is.
how did retirement treat you?
Good. Yeah. So um, I I had been finishing my bachelor's degree by taking online classes and shit, blah blah blah, over the years, like all of us do. And then when I was waiting for my medical retirement paper, which literally took a year, no shit, they let me go to college. So I was getting my master's degree. And by the time I got out, it's a little while later, I ended up with my master's.
Mhm.
And then I went to work for some technology companies. It was a great second career. I think I spent 17 years in a second career, which was really successful. I had a really good time. I got to keep working for the government. I got to have a way higher security clearance than I'd ever had before. And I got to do a lot of cool shit. Unfortunately, it's all still classified. I can't talk about it, but it was good. It was good. And then I'm going to be honest to you and everybody out there, because it's hard to say this. As my knees got worse, I got addicted to Oxy, and it fucking took me down. Um, to you guys out there, I know that a lot of people are in the same exact position that I was, where you're injured and they'll give you Oxy or whatever if you ask for it. And if you ask for more, they'll give you more. You got to not do that, man. It'll eat your life up. Drugs and alcohol will eat your life up. Don't do it. Get help if you need it. Talk to your buddies if you need to. Do what you got to do to stay healthy, to get better. Tons of guys got to have PTSD right now. Shit tons.
Mhm.
Ask for help. Don't let it eat you up. Don't drink till you go unconscious every night. It's not going to work. You're just going to die from it. So I want everybody to take that away. And a really good friend of mine who was a 3-star. Have you heard General Fridovich? Dave Fridovich?
The name rings
He
a
was
bell
a,
somewhere.
he was a first group guy mostly.
Hmm.
I knew him from SOC Pack. He became deputy commander of USOC. And one day, when it was getting close to his retirement, he gave a speech and he said what I just said: Oxy for his back. It was destroying his
I
life
fucked him
and
up.
his
Oh
family.
man.
Yeah, it's a serious subject and you got to take care of it.
And it's extremely addictive, from
Oh,
what I
God,
understand. And
it's
any kind
so,
of opiates are very addictive.
it's horrible.
And a
So,
lot of our, as you point out, Michael, I mean, a lot of our soldiers who've been injured during the war, that's how it starts, right? And
right.
it's very easy for those guys to get addicted, and it's not because they're bad or because they're weak or something like that.
No,
It's just,
not at all.
yeah,
It takes strength to get the help you need. You're not being a pussy, you're being a strong man,
yeah.
to get the help you need. Um, so that's that. The other thing I'd like to talk a little bit about is there's a Facebook group called Soft Cancer Warriors or something like that. I'll get
Mhm.
you the link later and you can
Sure.
post it. And it's guys that have cancer too early, from Special Forces guys. I think there's 500 members or something right now. If you have cancer, you need to find this Facebook group and get everything. They've got everything about what's going on currently, as far as the military side of the house, the treatment side of the house, the historical side of the house. We're trying to get the regiment to get involved in this because there's a lot of guys that are dying of cancer and have already died of cancer when they shouldn't have. Way too young. Dude, I was 47 when I was diagnosed and told I was going to die in 5 years. Didn't. Then I was told I was going to die in 3. And 2 years ago, I was told I was going to die in 1. So,
And
you know,
if it's okay with you, Mike, can you tell us a little bit about like what type of cancer you got hit with, what you think that may have come from, what the treatment has been like?
sure. So I started off with prostate cancer, which I found out so late that they had to immediately yank that thing out. I went to I went to Sloan Kettering, which is known for a huge cancer center, a global leading cancer center. And they did the initial treatment. And then it came back. And dude, I didn't even know it could come back. I thought when they took that thing
Yeah.
out, I was done. Well, a few years later, that shit came back. And it was just during a routine prostate annual physical that I found out. And I said to my doc, I'm like, what do you mean? I had my prostate out. And that's when he told me. Well, I went out in the parking lot and I called the American Cancer Society. And I'm like, is this for real? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, God damn. So I ended up, this time I have TRICARE because I'm retired. I ended up at Yale and lucky enough to ended up the guy who became ultimately the number one prostate cancer doctor in the world. And he started treating me. And he put me on every clinical trial that came along, every treatment. I've had radiation, I've had injections, I've had chemotherapy, I've had so many different types of treatment. But each one has given me a few more years of life. You know, I'm on chemo right now for the 3rd time, but it's not going great. But they've already got something else in the pipeline, they're going to give to me. And for the last 5 years, I've been at the VA because I like it better. They give me a team of people that helps me. They're connected to Yale. They do really good. But the guys in the group have all different types of cancer and know about all the different kinds of treatment. So it's a huge resource until we can convince the damn regiment to do something, which we need to do. These, I 100% think it's from chemical or nuclear weapons, ionizing radiation, not like a nuke, which are in weapons. And because I saw and was exposed to so many chemical weapons and decom points in Iraq, I can't imagine it's not from that. I know it ain't from some goddamn locust in Africa. So now it's bone cancer, and that's just horrible. It's so painful. It's in my fucking spine and my ribs and my back. It sucks. But prostate cancer can go to bone cancer, or it cannot.
Shit.
Yeah, man. But I've learned to live with it. I just want to tell my story, get guys to get help, not just with cancer, but with the drugs and alcohol. And I want guys to help me get the active duty guys to pay attention to us because they're going to be in our shoes. They're going to inherit whatever we do or don't have. All we got now is one little fucking Facebook group. Come on, guys, you can do better. They can do better than that.
It's something that I'm gonna get on this year. Actually, is going. I've been putting it off, and everyone always tells me you need to go to VA and put this claim in and that claim in. And I just been avoiding it, and thankfully I've been helpful so far. But having conversations with you, Mike, and with others, I mean, dude, what I was exposed to burn pits. I come down with some weird cancer next year that no one's ever
That's
seen
right.
before. You
All
got to
these
think about
guys
that.
that were in GWAT, they need to
Hmm.
pay attention,
Yeah.
and all these guys that are colonels and generals now need to pay attention too, because they're going to get it too. They had long ass deployments over there, and I'm sure Iraq still had chemical weapons laying around when they went back in there. because I saw tons of them myself. They must still have them, right? When they went back. Have you heard?
I don't know. I'm
Hmm.
sure there's still UXO out there.
Oh, sure. There's tons of UXO.
Um, any other any questions I failed to ask or any other like events that you really wanted to talk about?
No, I don't think so, Jack. I just appreciate your letting me have this platform, and if I help one guy, I've done my job. And if I get that link, can you somehow embed it
Yes, I
on
can.
here?
I can put it in the
Okay,
description.
okay, perfect.
Um,
So my motto is "New Datheon for real," not not for the SIF, because I've been defying cancer for so fucking long. You
it's
know.
true, man.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and I still get notes of support and texts from Millie. He's a good man
That's
about
awesome.
the cancer. Yeah, yeah. A lot of good people in SF.
Hey, well, I hope that you're going to stick around for a little while longer, Mike, and I hope we can meet up in your neck of the woods. We both live in the Northeast. Hope I can see you again, sometime this year.
All right, Jack. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.